On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, a Mississippi River barge and train collide. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to this episode of What's Going On with Shipping. If you're new to the channel, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. So, posted this on Twitter yesterday, and needless to say, it got a lot of response. And I want to clarify it because a couple of issues with this story. Number one, this story is about a Mississippi River tug and barge colliding with a train. Yes, that's right. A tug and barge on the Mississippi River collided with a train. We'll explain why in a minute. The story I posted had to do with the fact that the National Transportation Safety Board just released their report about this incident that happened back in November of 2021. But I thought it'd be worth going back and taking a look at it because it is such an unusual incident. A train collided with a tug and barge. Again, this is the fun world of shipping that I get to talk about on a consistent basis. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this story. So this is the NTSB report that was issued at the end of August. And Mike Schuller just did a story on this on GCAPT, and I'll have the link in the show notes for you. But basically, the NTSB said that a Mississippi River towing vessel's pilot and its captain pushed its tow up against a riverbank too close to a railway track, leading to a collision with a freight train and derailment near Galand, Iowa. The November 13th, 2001 incident involving the towing vessel Baxter Southern, which you see depicted below there, was pushing 4 empty barges and a Burlington Northern Santa Fe coal train transiting the track along the shoreline of the upper Mississippi River. The train stuck a barge that was overhanging the railroad track. 2 locomotives and 10 hopper cars loaded with coal derailed. 6 of the derailed hopper cars entered the river. 2 train personnel sustained minor injuries. The collision resulted in $1.9 million in damage to the locomotive and freight cars. The barge sustained minor scraps. Here's the map from the NTSB report showing where this incident took place. It was just north of the Iowa-Missouri border on the Iowa side of the river. Now, I want to be clear about a couple of things. I'm a merchant mariner. I sailed ships for 7 years. I am not, however, a Mississippi riverboat pilot or worked on the Mississippi River at all. Understand, different shipping involves different unique skill sets. So I am not a inland waterway pilot at all. So if I get anything wrong, please leave comments, leave some comments. Let me know what I got wrong. I'm not perfect by any means. However, I do know a lot of people who work on the river, and I've read through this report extensively. I've worked with the American Waterways operators. So let's talk about what's involved here. So first off, the issue at play here was wind. There were gusts up to 43 miles an hour. It's November. Temperature was down. It was below freezing air temperature. And pushing empty barges on a river will result in basically the barges kind of wanting to have a mind of its own. And it's not unusual on the Mississippi River and the inland waterways when you get into a situation where it's hard to handle your tugs and barges, you just nudge them up against the bank and you wait for the weather to subside. This is fairly typical business to take place. So on board the tug Baxter Southern, you had a total of 8 people. You had the captain, you had a pilot, then you have on board an engineer down in the engineering space, a mate who works alongside the captain, taking turns on the wheel, a tankerman, and 3 deckhands. And the barges they had were arranged in these 2 rows. 3 of the barges were about 295 feet long, 298 feet long. The 4th was about 175 feet long. And overall, the tow was 716 feet. Not a huge amount of barges on the river, but a good size. So the tug and barge was at Pine Bend, Iowa for refueling. They stayed there waiting for some winds to subside. And on November 13th at 6 in the morning, they got underway. Shortly thereafter, at 9 o'clock, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe train departed Burlington, Iowa, en route to West Quincy, Missouri, hauling 143 hopper cars loaded with coal. We've just been talking about railway strike here recently, and this gives you an idea of what we're talking about here, about these huge railway cars and these huge railway trains being crewed by only 2 personnel. So as the tug is proceeding, wind begins to increase. And one of the big things, you're getting gusts. They're reporting gusts up to 40, 45 miles an hour. So late that evening, the pilot and the captain talk about where to kind of lay over, where to nudge this up. And the captain said he originally planned to tie up at Lock and Dam number 19, mile marker 364 in the Mississippi, to wait, but there were 2 tows ahead of them, and he knew that the tows would basically take up all the spots. So he had to find another spot. And so the captain and the pilot determined it'd be unsafe to proceed to the lock. And so they start talking about potential sites on it. And based on the pilot's experiences, what you have a pilot for, they knew that there were trees and other obstructions on the descending bank that would prevent the vessel from safely pushing up the shoreline. So the pilot told the captain there was an area on the right descending bank before the lock where he had previously seen barges pushed up against the bank. So one of the elements here is the use of electronic chart systems. Basically, ships don't have paper charts anymore. They're using electronic charting systems. In this case, they're using the Rose Point navigation system. So a lot of details, a lot of advantages for electronic charting. Let me be clear. You can basically have automatic updates. You don't have to go through the papers, reading through Notice to Mariners and updating charts all the time. It's almost instantaneous, the information. So they reviewed the system and they were looking for a place to do it. And basically they found a place. The captain pilot saw an area marked by a magenta dashed line on the electronic navigation chart next to the railroad tracks at mile 372, excuse me. And they both believed that that was the best area. The pilot had seen basically ships docked up there before. So the captain left the wheelhouse for a short period of time. And by the time he came back 10 minutes later, the pilot had the tow lined up and they were proceeding to basically beach the bow of the tow up against the embankment. And this is where I want to read from part of the report directly. The captain and the pilot knew they were pushing up against an area near a railroad track. So they knew about the track. And they stated that due to the high winds and nighttime conditions, they decided it would not be safe to place a crew member as a lookout on the forward barge. Usually you have someone up on the bow as you're nudging up to say what you're happening. But because of the wind and because of conditions, they decided not to do that. Instead, they were going to send the crew members up after they've been pushed up against the bank, much more stable, not rocking around a bit. So around 23:36 hours, that's 11:36 at night, the forward port barge was pushed up on the shore and the tug and tow were at approximately 40-degree angle to the riverbank with the stern angled downriver. Now that makes perfect sense. If you look at this chart right here, the Mississippi River is flowing from the upper right to the lower left. If you angle the other way, your ship would pivot. This way, you can nose up against the bank, give it a little bit of thrust if needed, and keep yourself pushed up against the bank. You don't want to get sideways to the bank and endanger hitting your screws, the wheels of the propellers against the shallow water. This is kind of the perfect way you want to kind of beach it right here. So go back to the written report here. Where was that? The pilot did not note any problems with the tow pushing up against the shore, and the captain departed the wheelhouse after the head of the tow was on the embankment. And this is what you see here. Here's how that embankment looked. You push the port side barges, which are the longer of the two, up against the embankment. Around 23:38, 3 crew members were mustered and shortly afterwards headed forward to verify the foremost barge. Now, remember, they went ashore here 23:36, so just a few minutes, not a lot of time here passed. They went ahead to make sure they were clear of the railroad track. The pilot turned on the vessel's searchlight atop the wheelhouse and pointed toward the bow to illuminate. So you've got light, you can see what's going on. Before the 3 crew members could check the track clearance, they saw the headlight of an approaching train lead locomotive as it appeared on the starboard side of the tow, coming around the slight bend in the tracks behind some trees 2,000 feet away. And this is obviously where the situation happened. So according to the lead locomotive recorder data, at 23:42 and 40 seconds, the train entered a 40-mile-an-hour section of the track. The speed of the train increased from 25 to 40 as the engineer increased the throttle. Both the train conductor and the engineer saw the lights in the outline of the towing vessel and barges in the distance. They stated that the tow looked to them to be perpendicular to the shoreline. They would not be able to see literally the bow of the barges because they're not really well lit. They stated that the tow looked to be perpendicular to the shore. The conductor and engineer stated they were not concerned because they could see that the towing vessel and barge were either in the river or up against the riverbank, and it was commonplace to see barges along the shoreline of the river. I want to go fast forward here. This is the image from the locomotive. So they're heading southbound along the Mississippi River. Here, about 12 seconds before the collision, you can see, I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit more for you. So you can see the outline of STC 3020. This is the port side barge, the longest of the two barges, nudged up again. About 6 seconds before the collision, they can see that the barge is actually over the embankment, and part of it is over the railroad ties, but not over the track. But they're going to start hitting the train emergency brake because they realize that the train is wider than the tie, wider than the as wide as the railroad ties and wider than the gauge of the tracks. And so they're going to hit. You can see them here about 2 seconds before the collision, and then here 2 seconds after the collision, the train is coming off the track. It basically hit the barge and sent the engines off the track. Here's the images of the next day of the derailment. The train derailed. At that point, the pilot moved the Baxter Southern away from the riverbank. The captain came back to the wheelhouse, took the helm from the pilot, maneuvered the vessel into the center of the river and faced it upriver so he can hold position. At 23:50, the captain notified company personnel and authorities of the casualty. The captain received permission from the Coast Guard and for the Baxter Southern tow to proceed upriver to push up against another location on private property away from the tracks and to basically get out of the way of the issue. None of the crew members on the Baxter Southern received any injury. This was the damage to the barge, minimal damage, but just enough to send the train hurling off the track and to derail a number of the coal hopper barges, hopper trains, cars, excuse me. So you can see how close the water is to the train right here in the tracks. And you can see where STC 3020 pushed up against the embankment and actually pushed up to the point where part of the barge was over the railroad ties. And this is obviously the issue. Now, the crew was heading up on the barges to make sure that this is poor timing, obviously. Who knew a train was coming down at this exact moment? Normally, you would have personnel on the barge up forward as you're grounding to make sure this isn't an issue. But why wasn't the crew on the tug aware of the close proximity of the track to the river? That's the issue. So one of the things about charts, either electronic or paper charts, is they contain a lot of information. And if you're not used to reading charts, it can be a bit of a problem. You have to get really used to reading them. On electronic charts, you have to click on things and it brings up a long list of information. And it's always been an issue with electronic charts at night because you have to understand at night on vessels, you have minimal light on the bridge. You want to use your night vision. I know you see lots of movies where it's all bright on the bridge. That doesn't exist. You want dim lights, very little white lights at all. And so less light is important, but electronic charts have lights. And one of the things that you notice here is this area on the electronic chart here, and there's a little exclamation point, and a little exclamation point on electronic chart means there's more information. And obviously they didn't see this or didn't click on this because if you brought it up, it brought this warning up. Railroad collision and track bed erosion risk. Risk of train collision and embankment erosion due to the channel proximity to the railroad. This was posted by the Burlington Southern Santa Fe Railroad on here, and basically made this issue that, listen, if you use this area, you're going to be potentially close to the rail line because of this embankment. And obviously the failure to notice this is what causes the issue. Come back to the report here. Both the captain and the pilot said they had training in using the ECS, the electronic chart system, but they stated they did not see the exclamation point icon by the magenta dashed line because the screen setting was in a nighttime mode, making the exclamation point difficult to see. Well, it's going to be in a nighttime mode. It's almost midnight. And so you're not going to blow your eyes out with white lights. And obviously an issue here and seeing it, they needed to really look closely here at where they were grounding this vessel. And it's easy to play Monday night quarterback, and I apologize. But again, obviously the issue here was they missed this and didn't see it on the electronic chart, and it led to the collision. These were not rookie people involved. The captain had 27 years of experience. He had completed training on this electronic charting system back in April of 2020. The pilot had 32 years of experience, had been working on the Baxter Southern for less than 2 months. He had pushed tows there probably half a dozen times. And so both these people had great experience in this area. So National Transportation Safety Board came out with their probable cause, and they said that the probable cause between the collision of the Baxter Southern and the coal train was the tow pilot and the captains not correctly identifying a caution area on the electronic chart before deciding to push the tow up against the riverbank. They go for lessons learned. They talk about how you need to be more thorough with the use of electronic chart systems and be familiar to make sure that you're using your cursor pick to find all the information that's out there and understanding what the symbols mean. So obviously a significant event. Fortunately, it only resulted in 2 minor injuries, those of the conductor and the engineer on board the train. Could have been much worse. Obviously, you could have had a life or death situation here. But again, something that happens on rivers is this, pushing barges and tows up against the embankment, needing to know whether or not you have a clear area to do that. Obviously, the pilot and the captain on the tug thought they did. Were they aware of the train being there? Sounds like they may have known it, but they were not aware of the erosion and how close they were to the railroad that their barge was going to overlap on it. Again, accidents happen, much more visibility of them today in our modern world of social media and nonstop 24/7, and the fact somebody has a YouTube channel who talks about these things. But again, it's part of doing business on these rivers, and accidents will happen. Big question is the information getting out to other pilots and captains on riverboats along the Mississippi? Are we doing more to present highlights? It would be really nice on an electronic chart if you're getting close to one of these hazardous areas that they do something more than be dark magenta color, perhaps light up or something, who knows? But I'm sure we can do something with electronic charting to make this happen. We need to use the technology more efficiently in the maritime industry. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Give it a thumbs up, share it across social media, and if you can, contribute to the page. You can do it one of 2 ways. You hit the super thanks button below, contribute directly to the page. That helps me keep this page up and running. Or second, become a patron of the page, where you can support the page either monthly or yearly. Every little bit helps me keep this page up and running. Until our next video, this is Sal signing off.